Have you ever had a glitch in the Matrix experience? Well, if so, please consider sending it my way. Go to hastheravendreams.com and click the big button that mentions sending me your story. And of course, thank you. Back in 2018, I had what I can only describe as a quantum immortality experience. A really huge one. I'll save that for another post, but there have been huge glitches or differences within the world after. For me, an open skeptic. Okay, not open skeptic. I couldn't and did not want to believe in the concepts like quantum immortality, glitches, or the Mandela effect. They seemed like a modern day religion developing based on people who lack understanding of certain fields, and suddenly having too much information because of the internet, and then having social media say that you're not alone with that one topic, which turns into a conspiracy about aliens, demon robots taking you to Mars at night, but in fact it's just sleep paralysis. The deep implications of quantum immortality was something I wanted to believe. Because that means that I died, left my loved one alone, and these people around me are not the people I loved and cherished. They were cosmic doppelgangers. So, a short list of changes. My father and best friend's childhood totally changed. Again, I'll leave the details of that also to a different post. Several actors and media B-listers died before, but now are alive and well. So many things, but it's one thing to hear Tom Baker from Doctor Who suddenly no longer dead after seeing an entire BBC program about him and seeing so many YouTubers of said TV show he was in talk about it. It's another thing completely when it's someone you know in person. I was a warehouse supervisor. We're always shipping, receiving. There's a regular truck driver who comes almost every day for years. A few I have known for almost 20 years. Other drivers are seasonal, and we see them for months out of each year until the busy season ends, and then we don't see them again until the following year. Well, let's call him Harry. It's not his real name, of course, nor will I say his company's real name. I'll say it's one of the top 3 delivery businesses in the world. Well, Harry was a charter. I mean, this guy didn't blend into a crowd. Tall, skinny, in his late 50s, early 60s, had dark, thick hair, little to no gray. Hairstyle was even, thick glasses that looked straight out of the 1950s. His glasses had clip-on shades, and he always carried a toothpick in his hand or mouth. He had a booming voice, loud and a little raspy, yet he rarely talked unless he really had something to say or was around people like us that he was comfortable with. So, my point, there was nothing average about this guy. Well, his wife was ill and we didn't see him one season. We asked where Harry was, and his wife had sadly passed away. He took time off and we saw him the following season. We all were happy to see him. He had no issue telling us about what had happened. I'll leave the personal stuff personal, but he said he wanted to retire but couldn't because he was left with huge bills after his wife's passing. 2 more years passed, and then he was a no-show again one season. I asked about him, and I was told he also became very ill with the thing that his wife had. It made sense now why he always had that damn toothpick whenever he and his wife were heavy smokers. He gave up smoking when his wife first started to get sick, and before she became really sick. Well, 2 more years passed and he still never returned, so I asked again. I found out he died as a result of his illness. He refused the same treatment his wife was receiving because of how bad it was for her, even with him taking care of her. He, at that point, didn't have anyone, so he decided to ride it out. After I found out this news, I told my entire company because we all liked this guy, and I was wondering about what had happened to him. Several coworkers didn't believe me, so over the following days they asked his other people who worked for his same company, and even his dispatcher that happened to have called for another reason, and they all confirmed it. Well, now the glitch that made chills run down my spine and really shattered my view of reality. 2018, I'm at work during the busy season. I hear a truck back into the dock. They say the company I shall not mention. I continue what I'm doing and yell, "Okay, make him wait, I'll be right there." Then, I heard a voice I recognized. It took me a second, honestly, to process what and who I thought I heard talking across the warehouse. I stop dead in my tracks. No pun intended. I slowly walk to the dock. I thought to myself, please don't be him. Oh, please do not be him. Because in all my denial and refusal to believe in quantum immortality and glitches at that time, if I turned and saw him alive, it would mean one of three things. One, I really did die, and this is not my universe. And my goddaughter that I love more than life itself, I was there when she was born. I was there when she spoke her first words. I heard her first laugh. I saw her first steps. That special person is now in a world without me. A world where they came home one day before Easter, only to find me dead in her playroom with holiday decorations in hand. That version of me died, trying to surprise her with cheer. Second, if he was there, glitches are 100% real, and we are likely not. Meaning that my loved ones in life can just be deleted, rewritten. We have zero control. We're essentially puppets on a stage for some higher being to play with. And I hate this concept as well. Third, if he was there, I cannot trust or depend on any memory and past event as being solid or real. The past is just as changeable as the future. I also hate this because who's in charge of it? Will they just delete me because I remember the changes and see the glitches? Will I wake up one day to listen to my YouTube narration channels only to find there is no record of anything ever called glitches in the Matrix, quantum immortality, or the Mandela effect? Perhaps those crazy homeless people ranting in the streets about things that don't exist aren't crazy after all. Maybe there are people who are unable to get updated with the rest of the world. So, I turn the corner, facing the dock, and I see Harry alive and well. It's 100% him, no doubt. No one else is looking shocked to see him. So I slowly walk up to him and say, "Hey, long time no see." He responds with a grin and says, "Yeah, it's been a short while." I actually feel my hands shaking. "So how you been?" I asked. "Oh, fine, just fine. You know, same old crap, different day," he replies. So I stutter and say, "I thought something may have happened with you, like you retired or moved or something." "No," he replied, "just doing the same old crap over and over. You know how it is, don't you?" Glaring at me through his clip-on shades, he continued saying, "People like us just keep going until we can't no more. But after a nap, we'll wake up and do it all again." I said, "It feels that way, doesn't it?" I wanted to just ask or just say that I thought you were dead. People told us that you died. But I was too disturbed to, and I didn't want to bring up death because of what had happened with his wife. After he was given his freight, I said goodbye and that it was nice to see him alive and in person. As soon as he drove off, I said to everyone around, "Holy crap, that was freaking Harry." My coworkers looked at me like I had two heads and said, "So what?" I said, He's supposed to be dead. Remember a few years back we all found out and were talking about him? But nope, none of them remembered any of it. This was not a false memory. I wasn't mistaking him for another person, and I even hoped it was a practical joke of some kind that Harry's coworker played on him to be cruel. Something like that would not go unpunished at a company like his if it was found out. But if that was the case, my coworkers would all remember it. And they don't. I will say this, I'm still employed at the same place, around the same coworkers, and I haven't seen Harry again since. I don't want to know, honestly, where I am anymore in the multiverse because since I've had several possible shifts, one very recently after a close call that I can't explain how I didn't get a scratch. The only differences I noticed are minor, so I can just push them into the misremembering file to keep sane. My goddaughter is still my little buddy, even more so now, because I've adapted a new outlook on life. We're all connected to our other selves in the multiverse, if that's the case. If this is a simulation, we're copies of the same code. I am who I am, my loved ones are who they are, and my love for them will not change no matter where I am. I love you, little buddy, no matter where you are, and I love every version of you that may exist, even if there is an evil version of you with a goatee somewhere. Just on an end note, I held off posting this because I get a weird feeling like I'm being watched, like something is different about this one. My coworkers are acting oddly. It's creeping me out that I just caught a coworker behind me. He snuck up behind me or just randomly appeared. I think he took a picture of the computer screen and what I was typing. Why would he do that at this time, when I'm also typing on here every day without him ever caring? I'm a bit afraid this time. I do hope this gets posted, and I feel like something is different with this one. This was just part of a bigger quantum immortality event. I've had so many glitches directly because of this. Glitches as in noticeable differences between the world before and the world after. I'll be happy to do a longer list and answer any questions as best I can, and I'll post a link when it's finished. One morning, I got up at my usual time to prepare for work. Since the COVID epidemic, I now work from home. On this particular weekday, I walked my dog that morning so he could use the bathroom, and also so that I could check my mail at our community's central mailbox location that sits next to our community pool. I collect my mail, and I notice that I have a key inside that is normally placed there when you have a package to collect from one of the otherwise empty mail containers. The name on the package wasn't mine, however. The address listed on it was my address. So, as I walked back to my house, I decided to drop it off on the neighbor's front porch whom I believed it most likely belonged to. And with that thought, if it wasn't theirs, since it had my address on it, they would return it to me, and then I walked home. I started work at 8 a.m., and around 9 a.m. I get a knock on my door. My Ring doorbell recording showed that it was a man who was empty-handed that had rung the bell and also knocked on my door. Although I couldn't answer the door because my job involves customer service taking phone calls all day, I smiled to myself thinking that the box I dropped off was indeed left at the right house, and the person wanted to thank me. I gave myself that little pat on the back for a job well done, and I, after all, had made the right decision. At 9:40 a.m., I go outside and make sure the neighbor from earlier didn't set anything on my front porch, and then noticed my planter had fallen over and was sitting upside down in the grass. I swooped it up, set it back down where it should be directly across from my Ring doorbell. My day then goes on as normal, and around 2:40 p.m., I go outside to pick up a small parcel that the Amazon delivery man had placed directly below my Ring doorbell. I picked up the Amazon package and looked into my planter and was startled to see sitting inside of it was the box I had dropped off earlier that morning at the neighbor's house. Well, I guess I didn't drop it off at the right house after all, I thought, as I picked them both up and took them inside the house. I started to feel really annoyed as I walked into my kitchen to set them both down because now I would have to go to the post office over the weekend so it could get to the right owner. I was fresh out of ideas of what else to do with it. I set them both down on my kitchen counter, and I got back to work. After work, I walked over to the kitchen counter and was shocked that the only package sitting there was the one from Amazon. I couldn't believe it, and it took me a few minutes to process that it really was not there. Where did it go? Now, I was completely befuddled because I remember bringing it in clear as day. I checked my Ring doorbell for my timeline, thinking I had just had an alternate reality experience. The Ring doorbell recorded the neighbor from this morning knocking on my door and then leaving. It also recorded me picking up the planter and setting it back down. Empty. Next recording showed Amazon man dropping off a package. Lastly, it showed me open my door, pick up the Amazon package, bend to look into my planter, and it audibly heard me say, "Who is this guy?" on the recording, suggesting that I really did see this box sitting there. There was no way it was just in my imagination. Yet, the recording does not show me picking it up or bringing it in. So, if I had indeed just left it outside in the planter to be dealt with later, it wasn't there after work when I checked. My Ring doorbell never recorded anyone dropping it off, nor did it show anyone taking it off my porch either. I don't know what the significance was of that box on that particular day in any of the parallel universes of mine, except that, in all of them, I was destined to get it and deal with it. I do have other alternate reality experiences to share, and maybe someday, one day in the future, I will do just that. I'm not entirely sure how much of a glitch these might be, but I thought you might find my story at least a little interesting. Raven has read my ghost stories as well, so it seems my life might have been more interesting than I ever thought. But of course, this is normal to me. I grew up dreaming about the future. And I don't mean it would be the next day, I mean a few weeks in advance. When I was little, there was no sound at all. I couldn't hear anything, but I would see myself doing things, and then a week later, I would feel myself doing it. Feeling this overwhelming feeling of doing this before. Deja vu. When I was 10, I started to gain sound. I remember the first deja vu tied to it. I was dancing in the bathroom, singing and laughing. I remember I stopped dead after and looked at myself in the mirror in shock. I had already seen this and heard all of this. I was just very confused and realized I'd heard all of it before, which was also very new to me. I remember walking home from my friend's place, pissed off and muttering to myself, and I stopped dead on the sidewalk. I remember everything I had said before. This fight had happened before. Though we had never fought over this same thing before, and I didn't normally get so mad that I muttered to myself. This has never gone away, I've even had it happen while talking to Raven about things that we've never talked about. And I do mean the music or the video that's playing in the background, brand new videos I might add, are all playing as well. I now see it as a sign that I'm on the right path. Nothing bad happens after, so it's not a foretelling of something ill. If any of you have had this happen, I would love to read what you have in the comments. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Raven, for reading. I have so many glitches, I figured I would start posting them all, big or small. For the past 3 years, I've been renovating my master bedroom. Okay, renovating isn't accurate. Gutting the room down to the studs, replacing the ceiling, floor, windows, electric, everything. I'm still not done because I started it right before the pandemic and all the curfews and so on. I'm also doing it completely alone on a super tight budget. To top it all off, I'm a perfectionist with some things, and I'm 50 with back issues. So yeah, I bit off more than I could chew. It doesn't help that I'm lucky to get a few hours a month to work on it. Okay, so to the glitch. My sister also lives in the same house. Money is tight, so splitting the bills makes life easier. She works the night shift at a big box store. I work a day shift somewhere else. So, we only see each other in passing, so it all works out. I often need to work on the room when she's supposed to sleep. Another reason it's taking so long, but she's okay with it once a week. I will often hear her snoring in her room, which is on the south wall of my room, or hear her walking around talking to herself, or the television in the living room, which is attached to the north wall of my room. So, depending on where I hear her, I'll try to work on the opposite side of the room just to be nice. The thing that freaked me out is, as I sat to take a break in the middle of the room, I could hear her clearly snoring in her room. Okay then, how did I then at the same time clearly hear her walking around and talking to herself as she was watching TV in the living room? I thought, is someone else here? As soon as I open my room door that enters the living room, the TV and talking stops. The snoring doesn't. No, she isn't sleepwalking. She has a bad knee, and she in no way can run like the Flash. And no one else was there. It gets weirder. It's not an isolated incident. It happens regularly since I started the remodeling. I know, people think ghosts. This is the house that I was raised in. Me and my sister got it when my parents retired and moved to an adult community. I never had a bad or ghost experience, not even when my father did construction on the house back in the day. But I did hear things that can be classified as paranormal. I, as a kid, regularly heard what sounded like someone in the kitchen doing kitchen stuff, like opening drawers and cooking at all hours of the night. There never was anyone there. Nothing was ever moved or out of place. My mother also admitted a few years ago that she heard it as well, thinking it was me or my sister, until she got up a few times to yell at us, only to find the kitchen empty and us sleeping. The other thing that I heard regularly was the sound of distant machinery and people talking like they were at the far end of a factory or warehouse. I heard it so many times that I can tell you the details. Like, it was always 2 to 3 male voices. They aren't intense, I can't understand what they were saying. but exactly like I'm in the back corner of a warehouse, just hearing normal ambient noise and going ons. The machinery that I hear, it's like a conveyor belt or something like that. And no, there wasn't ever a warehouse or factory here on this land. This house was built in the early 30s, and before that, it was part of a farm. Yes, there are factories close, but they are in no way close enough to hear what I was hearing. And as a kid, most of them were abandoned, and local crooks had stripped the places clean of copper and metal to try to make money on the scrap. Back to now, my room had two doors, one on the south side and one on the north. The south door I locked and never used. I even blocked it off with bookshelves for years. I only ever used the north door. Since the remodeling had started, I was temporarily using both doors for a few days. I, always as a kid, had nightmares about that door for some reason. When that was my parents' room in the 70s through the 90s, they used both. Nothing traumatic happened to me in that house, so I never knew what was up with that door. I figured since I'm gutting the whole room, I would get rid of that door for good. I overdid it a little and sealed it off using expensive, extra long decking screws, pressure-treated 2x4s, industrial strength decking adhesive. It's the strongest thing in my entire house now. I made it into bookshelves that inset in the wall that actually look good. But now, I can still hear things through it. I don't know how I forgot to mention that I also used special ridged soundproofing insulation while sealing it off. That room is almost airtight now. I went so overboard with insulating, reinforcement, and so on, it's like a freaking space station. I shouldn't be able to hear anything like what I can. But what had tipped me over into the Twilight Zone is that short time I was using both doors. Every time I heard my sister in two places at the same time, where she actually ended up when I checked depended upon which door I used. If I used the door on the same wall that her room was on, she would be in the living room and the snoring would stop instantly. If I used the door that opened into the living room, the sound of her talking to the TV would instantly stop, and she would be in her room, snoring. Now, I know some people think I imagined it, but here's the kicker. I went on FaceTime with a friend who lives in another state. He said, "Is that sound your sister snoring?" I said, "Yeah, maybe." I put the phone by the door, and he could hear it. I said, "You want to see something really weird?" I walked over to the other door, put my phone up to it, and he said, "Wait, how is your sister watching TV and sleeping in a different room?" I laughed, holding the camera facing the door to the living room where you can clearly hear the TV and my sister talking. I opened the door super fast. Poof. Silent, empty living room. I walk outside my room around to her room, and loud snoring. I then told him about the whole thing. He asked me what happens if you go back in your room and go out the other door. I paused and said I didn't know because I never tried going out one door and then running into the room and going out the other door. I closed my door and my sister apparently woke up and went into the living room to start watching TV. The snoring didn't start up the rest of that day. I thought deeply about what would happen if I tried that, and my sister instantly changed places. That was what made me go so overboard with sealing off that door. Now, I really need to say that I don't believe in ghosts, but I do think that there are thin spots in our universe. I've come to the conclusion my house sits on one of them. The warehouse sounds could be an actual real place in a reality where my town was zoned differently and the abandoned warehouse a block over was built where my house is. The sound in the kitchen could actually have been one of us doing normal things one does in a kitchen, except in another universe. My house being a glitched place, it oddly makes sense to me. Perhaps that's why I experience so many glitches regularly. I was raised within a glitched place. Or maybe I am the glitch and the fact that I grew up in that house has affected it. No, I don't think that I'm Neo, but I do know there seems to be forces at play that insist on my life going in a direction that I don't want it to go, and the more I fight it, the harder it pushes back. It seems like whatever it is doesn't want me to do the remodeling, and really didn't like me messing with that door. There's one other thing that I, in 50 years, can't seem to do that is totally ridiculous and defies reason. And it's odd, but I'll save that for another post, if I can even seem to post it. Okay, so I've been sitting on this story since the 90s when it happened. 2011 when I joined Reddit. It's kind of long, and it turns out I'm kind of lazy, but I think it's time. For background, at the time I was about 23, and I shared a home with my then husband, who was 24, my sister, 31, and my two young kids, both boys ages 4 and 2. And this was about 1994. One thing you should know is that throughout my entire life, things have just gone missing around me. As inexplicable as those events were, dropped something but it never made a sound and was never found. It was on my bed when I turned around and then it was gone. You know, that type of thing. I always pinned it on being klutzy, inattentive, forgetful, or even just one of those weird things. When we moved into this place, the missing stuff went into complete overdrive. It was making me feel insane. I was at a point in my life where I didn't want to accept it as just one of those things anymore. It just wasn't a reasonable explanation. And stuff was going missing constantly, pretty much daily. I'd make up explanations in my head, no matter how unlikely the explanation was. Okay, maybe my 2-year-old got out of bed, silently came down the stairs, made it past everyone in the living room without being seen, went into the kitchen silently, made it onto the counter, grabbed my item, and then did the whole thing in reverse. And then a week later, replicated it, but this time put the item back? I mean, honestly, not likely. But what other explanation is there? So, the event in question. It was a weekday. My sister went to work, and my shift-working husband is taking the kids out of town to visit his family. I'm taking the day to get some child-free errands done. I got everyone out the door, and had a coffee, read the newspaper in peace, and then started gathering my items for the errands. I put my house and car keys on the coffee table while I went to the kitchen to put my cup in the sink. Note that because I had a 2-year-old, there was nothing else on the coffee table. We kept it as bare as much as possible. I come back into the living room and the keys aren't there. Okay, this is ridiculous. I retrace my steps. Maybe I absent-mindedly picked them up again. Nope. The kitchen counter is bare. Okay, with my coat that I put down, maybe? No. I'll fast forward through much of the next 45 minutes. I will say that I had the idea that maybe my losing stuff was due to a brain tumor or something. Like maybe the items really were there and for some reason I just wasn't seeing them. Which led me to sweeping my arm across the coffee table at least a dozen times and turning it on its side at least 3 times. I looked every place that I could think of. In kitchen cupboards, in the bathroom that I hadn't used, in the upstairs bathroom that I definitely hadn't used, in the sink, which was empty besides one cup, under the sofa, which I lifted up, in the sofa. I probably lifted the heavy TV. I do remember the last place I looked was by the front door, and I emptied out every single shoe, even though it was a hefty bundle of keys. I mean, I was really running out of places to look. I finally thought, fine, you know what? I have gone insane. Maybe I never had the keys. Maybe my husband accidentally took them. Whatever, I'm not doing any errands today. I'm done. And I then dejectedly walked back into the living room, and on the middle of the otherwise bare coffee table were my keys. And that was one of 2 incidents that I absolutely could not explain, no matter how unlikely. This was a small townhouse. Small. Limited ways in and out. No doors. You could look into one room from the other. And I was all alone. For the record, my things still disappear, but nowadays, I just shrug. I'm not playing that game, universe. Well, here we are, once again, at the end of another weekly Glitch in the Matrix collection. One that I genuinely hope that you enjoyed. And I want to shout out a huge thank you to 242 for submitting that story to me, as well as Joey, who also submitted a story to me. So thank you to both of you. Always appreciated. If you've experienced a glitch and you want it on the channel, please do send it my way, astheravendreams.com. There's a big button that says click here to submit your story, or something like that. I typically do read them all the way through. Try to add as much detail as you can. If it's more than a couple hundred words, typically it works out best. Just saying, just a random statement there. If you enjoyed the video, please do hit that thumbs up button. And also subscribe to the channel if you're new. However, if you're not new to the channel and you're already subscribed, if you click that subscribe button, it's going to unsubscribe you. And then you'll stop seeing my videos in your feed. Not that YouTube pushes my videos into many people's feeds as it is. And if you do that, you'll make me cry. I will cry. I will literally force myself to cry. Please don't leave me. No. Please. Yeah, subscribe if you like what you heard. Did I already say hit that thumbs up button? Probably. I'm ranting here, so I don't know if I did or not. Well, hit that if you haven't yet. And if you want to support the channel further, you can leave a comment. And to move away from my rambling nonsense, let's move on to the word of the week, which is what you can leave in your comment. That's what that segue was. Last week's word of the week was something that I don't remember. However, these lovely people on the screen left me a comment with it, and every single one of them is an amazing person. Thank you to everybody who leaves me a comment with the words of the week. I really do appreciate it. Like, it really does mean a lot to me, because it's awesome to have this kind of interaction with you guys, to kind of assign you something and have you respond with it. So thank you very much to all of you. This week's word of the week will be the last one of the year. Next week, there will not be a word of the week because it's a compilation of glitch stories, 4 hours long, ones you've already heard if you're caught up, but people seem to like those, so I decided to do it. Which means that this word of the week will have 2 weeks to have you submit something if you want your name on the screen. This week's word of the week is prepared. Prepared, and it means made fit or suitable, willing, or made ready or fit or suitable beforehand. I use this word because at this point in time, we have to reflect upon this year and be prepared for the next one. And I think 2022 is going to be a good year. One way or another. We will persevere. We will push through. We will succeed. I promise you that. All that said, my friends, I hope you have a beautiful day. I hope you have a great week. And I hope I'll see you tomorrow. because this week is a video a week, a video a day. But yeah. Anyways, hope I'll see you then. And of course, sleep well.